DevRel for Linea, but really all I do is amplify the really cool tooling and infrastructure that exists to empower Linea devs. So I'm going to stop talking about myself and let the beautiful gentlemen here introduce themselves. So I guess take it away.
Thank you, Emily. I'm Federico, CEO of Loki.code. Thank you for having me here. Fabio?
And I'm Fabio. I'm the product designer here at Loki.code.
Awesome. So let's just get it started off. What is Loki.code?
Yeah, I'll start. I'll take the question. So Loki.code is a collaborative web application for Web3 teams to compile, manage, interact, and deploy smart contracts on multiple blockchains, Linea included, of course. And we started this project a few years ago with an interest in exploring ways to simplify and make smart contract development more accessible for newcomers, new developers joining Web3. And after all the journey, right now we are focusing especially on the deployment piece of smart contracts. So you can think about Loki.code as a sort of smart contract deployment management tool that people that work remotely, so teams working remotely, can use to access the same project at the same time, basically without the need of sharing things, through Telegram or other chats that Web3 teams, as well as any other distributed team all over the world, tends to use.
Yeah, anything you want to add to that, Fabio? Or
Yeah, just to give you a little bit of background, when we started, we were actually a completely different product. We were trying to tackle smart contract creation from a different standpoint, and it was around visual programming languages. We iterated a lot of the product. We talked to a lot of people in the Web3 ecosystem, developers and whatnot, and we came up with a product that was missing at the time, and it is still very much new, and we're trying to introduce and onboard people to it, which is what Federico talked about. It's a collaborative space for team to actually manage and deploy their smart contracts. And there's actually a lot more than we are currently working and planning on our roadmap. So if we're going to do a demo today, it's going to be like what we currently offer right now. But just so you know, that's a lot more coming, and we're working.
Yeah, we'll get into the demo a bit because I wanted to touch on kind of the working remotely / collaboratively as a team. Backstory, in the midst of our small talk right before this stream, turns out Loki team is very far apart, experienced some pain points. I feel like it would be really good to dive into, what the problems you guys saw with kind of remote development and how that inspired the features and the development of what you see Loki.code today.
Yeah, look, Emily, let me tell you this story. We basically came to know together, and the team was built up. I was in California studying, and was doing empirical research, about smart contracts. I was on Reddit, and at some point I was captured by this post describing the idea that Fabio was telling earlier, the visual programming piece. I'm not a developer, by the way, so I was super interested in approaching this space as a new buy. And it turned out that Fabio, Adam, and Malaki knew already, and they were already working on the visual programming piece. And it turned out that Adam and Malaki were in California. Fabio was already in Manchester, and they were working remotely. At some point, I had to turn to go back to Europe, and we decided to invite Pedro, who is Brazilian, to join the team. And so the team was built up. After some months, Malaki who has relatives in China decides to go to China. And so, at some point, we have one person working from Taiwan. Sorry, not China. I mean, China, yes, Taiwan Island. One working in California, another one working in UK, myself in Italy, and Pedro in Brazil. And so we had to organize, the team and everything all together. This, the need for something that coordinates distributed work was necessary from day zero internally for us. It seems that this is something that is very common in Web3 as well. I was reading a report from Pantera Capital back last October, mentioning that around 87% of the workforce they surveyed is distributed. So it seems that this is something very popular, very common in the Web3 space. And the idea of having one central platform where everybody can access and work together, that simplifies the process very, very much, because there is no need for sharing files, sending pieces of code from one chat to the other.
Yeah. Oh my God, sending code between chats. Insane. Yeah, I mean, blockchain development's very interesting, I think, with regards to like smart contract development and everyone having kind of their own private test blockchain and figuring out like, I don't know, how everything works together. But I do want to stop kind of talking around Loki code because I don't think people will really understand it until they see exactly what they're looking for or looking at. So we can hop into a demo and like actually give devs
Absolutely.
something
Let's just get into it.
tangible.
I'm just going to show you currently what we have right now and what you can do currently in Loki, and also a bit of a sneak peek at what we're working for the months to come and some of the new features that we're going to be releasing. Cool. Let me share my screen. And just give me a heads up when you can actually see my dashboard.
I can see your dashboard. It's kind of
Perfect.
small, but maybe my eyes are just bad.
This is the biggest my screen can get. Sorry.
No worries, no worries.
Awesome. So this is the Loki.code dashboard. What you can do in Loki.code is to actually import and manage your product, as well as compiling and deploying and play around with your smart contract. The first time that you actually start using Loki.code, we ask you to connect your GitHub account. Some developers which are very privacy conscious might find this a little bit weird, and the reason why we ask you to do that is there because we use the code in your existing repository to actually work on it in Loki. And the main reason we do that is that we don't store any of your code. We don't store any of your deployment, any of your keys or anything like that. So we pretty much based onto whatever you already have in GitHub, and we work from there. It is also cool because asking developers to completely switch their work environment, like they might be using VS Code or GitHub and all sort of other stuff, and asking them to like, hey, just forget about everything and jump onto Loki.code would be probably a little bit too extreme and too much for some of them. And that's why we integrate between what they're already using and on top of the stack they currently use. So after you connect to GitHub, you can just give access to a few certain repositories. So if you don't want to give access to all of them, that's totally fine. Maybe just give access to a couple of a repository that you want to play or use. And you also obviously be required to connect your wallet if you want to deploy and do transactions with your contracts. But it's not necessary to play around with the platform itself. So if we go ahead, I already created a small project which is called Loki Workshop, and in here we have just a couple of contracts. We have a classic NFT, an ESC 1155, and a ESC20 token. Right now, this is a view-only code editor where you can actually see your file structure of your repository and your code. We are planning to actually improve this view a little bit more because right now the syntax and the colors are not the greatest. But bear with me here. We're really in beta right now, so we are slowly improving all of those things. From here, once you have once you're okay with your code, which is continually synchronized with your GitHub repository, so in the background, other people can continue to push new code to the repository, and we can go straight to compiling. Like I want to compile this ERC20 token. Just gonna go on to compile. Just give it a couple of seconds, and once the contract has been compiled, I'm just going to be redirected to this new view, which is your deployment view. From here, there are two things that are essential. So you can set up some settings when it comes to deploying your contract. So you can pick the network, you can pick the contract that you want to deploy, but you also have a bit of a history of your contract. So you can see that I have already played around with this contract before because I already done some compiling, some changes and some deployments before. So this is really nice to actually allow our teams to keep track of all the things happening with their contracts at any given point of time. Especially because when you develop during the developing stage, you might you might push code continuously. You might continue to compile and deploy on a testnet to continuously test new things that you're implementing, especially if you have a lot of bugs and you're a bad developer like me. So if we go on to settings, we offer a bunch of networks that you'll be able to deploy on, as well as linear, of course. And we also integrate with BuildBear. For the people that don't know, BuildBear is a partner of ours, and they allow you to fork entire mainnets and use them directly. So they will give you access to your own faucet, your own block explorer, and a bunch of other cool stuff like that. So if you don't know, then go check it out at buildbear.io. But apart from that, we also have a bunch of testnets, including the linear girly testnet, which we're going to use to deploy right now. So we can pick the compile that we just did here. And once we press deploy, failed to deploy contra. Probably because there are some bugs into my code on the ERC20 token. So just leave it at there. But after you click deploy, you should be able to have a deployment onto linear testnet, and you should be able to see something like this in the green. Now, what you can do, obviously you want to interact with the deployed contract that you just did. You can use Etherscan, but let's be honest, it's not the greatest interface. So another thing that you can do, you can access the playground. And what the playground does is that it generates on one side, on the left, all of the functions of your contract. And on the right, it will just give you the front-end JavaScript code for the front-end developers to be used. And this is where really the smart contract developer and the front-end developer comes together, because you don't need to like share. I've seen that a lot, like developers like, oh, can you send me the ABI via Telegram, and you end up like with a super long message and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or like sometimes even private keys and so on. So these really put the two part of the team together, where you can still test individual functions of a contract. Like I can, for instance, I can just grab, I don't know, the name of the contract. I can load the transaction, and it will return the name of my ERC20 token. And in the same fashion, you can pretty much test all of those functions. The front-end guy can just come here and just grab the code for this contract and just pretty much copy and paste it into the front end and be good to go. We recently implemented not only Ethers.js, but also Web3 for people that are really still like to use that. And that's a growing sentiment towards a VM, which is TypeScript based. So we also support TypeScript for the same functions. And We also have a few extra features in settings, which is user management. As I mentioned in the beginning, we are a collaborative workspace. So the first thing that you might want to do is to invite all your collaborators and friends to your project, because otherwise they won't have access to it. And this is for what we currently have right now. As I mentioned before, we are in closed beta, but we're always looking for new developers to try out our solutions and let us know what they think. So if you're interested and you want to try Loki, just jump into our Discord. You can find the link onto our website, Loki.code.io.
Can I add a very quick thing
Sure.
about the collaborative piece? So you can invite your team members, but something that you could do is also inviting smart contract audit firm or anyone you trust and who could like improve the security of the code that you worked on, or someone that can assist you, your team, when it comes to get the deployment of the smart contract right on that specific platform, like Linea. And still, the rationale is always the same. It is bringing all the stakeholders that work on, at the end of the day, the same piece of code together, and helping them not to chase the code wherever that is in one device or the other.
Yeah, we actually have a partnership with Zocchio, which is an auditing firm. And talking to them, this is one of the ideas that came up from the collaboration standpoint. You can actually invite them so they can actually see the project as it is, as it's been built, and see all the commits and history. Because they're like, sometimes we get people that want to have an audit and they just send us a zip file. It's no documentation. We have to figure out how to build the contracts ourselves and all that stuff. But if I jump into Loki, it's already all there. They don't have to figure all this stuff out, which is pretty cool. And we are continuously working with them to also improve the auditing side of Loki. Jumping onto some of the new stuff they were working on. These are some designs which are done in Figma. And I'm just going to show you some of the things that we are going to improve in the months to come based on the initial beta testing that we've done with some developers. As you can see here, this is still the deploy section of your contract, but it's much more advanced. You'll be able to see a lot more information, like who made this compilation, who made this deployment, as well as being able to post some comments to each of the deployment and compilation, so you can keep track of what's happening. Because sometimes you might just have a GitHub commit message that explains what's happening and what's changed, but here you can actually enrich and gives a little bit more information. One thing that we're also going to improve is the deployment side of things. As you can see before, it's just a single drop down with a bunch of networks. And one thing that we noticed that it is easy to pick a testnet instead of a mainnet and vice versa. So what we want to do is to actually divide the deployment process. Like, hey, you want to deploy? Okay, you want to deploy on mainnet, testnet, or do you want to use Build-Bear? And when it comes to testnet, you still have access to all of the same testnet as before. And we're also adding support for deployment script. So if you're a developer and you're familiar with Hardats, they have deployment script. You'll be able to import them as well and use them to manage the deployment process of your contract. For Build-Bear, pretty much the same thing, but you'll be able to see all of your forks, as well as the one that you are forking, because they sometimes take a couple of minutes, and create new forks. All of the forks are usually available for 24 hours unless they're not used, and then they get discarded. Another thing that we are improving, well, you've already seen the playground improved, but we're also adding a diagram, and which it might look confusing to some, and it is still sort of a work in progress. But what a diagram is a UML representation of your Solidity code, and this might be familiar for smart contract auditors, because they want to see like a bird's eye view of your contracts, what interacts with, and what all the pieces that it touches. And this is actually useful once it's also a little bit more fleshed out to see everything that is happening. Well, I talked about the playground before with Web3.js, Ether.js, and VM. We're also adding a new view for interacting between multiple contracts. Because let's say that you have a contract that calls another contract. Right now, you don't have an understanding of what's happening on the other side. But if you can grab both of them and compare them side by side, you can see where the first contract interact with the second one and also see what's the output. And this is something that also has been one of the feedback from our developers, and we are trying to implement soon. Awesome. I think that was it for my demo.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. Oh my god. I there is a question about like verification. Does Loki.code help with any of that, like smart contract verification?
You intend on Etherscan? If it's on Etherscan, yes, we're also adding that feature. Once you deploy, we automatically call the Etherscan API to verify your source code.
Okay, very cool. I like how you brought in the, I guess, the collaborative nature of like auditors too. That's not something like I think about off the top of my head in terms of who needs to be brought in for your
It's
code.
something that we didn't think of it at first because we were like focusing on developers. But since we are talking about the entire life cycle of a contract, they're actually part of it, usually at the later stage, and maybe if you can afford it, because they might be expensive. But yeah, it's also part of it.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Emily, creating a space, if I can jump in, but creating a space that coordinates different people is much more important than, you know, you can assume at the very first sight, just because think about the way, you know, most of the time development works. You have to outsource something to someone you trust. Think about a Web3 development studio, okay? And you have the project manager or the product manager within your company, you know, managing or just, you know, keeping track of what's going on the other end. And at some point, you have the security issues that are run by, well, that are controlled by the security, the smart contract audit firm. And at some point, either you deal one-on-one with each of these people, or you just try to bring them in, and you basically create a little community of people working on the same project. And you know, in our opinion, that would make coordination much simpler and the process much you know, smoother than it could be without that.
Awesome. Yeah, I guess maybe to kind of summarize everything, right? And like really hone in on the value proposition of Loki.code, right? Like what is it about smart contract development that makes existing tools not compatible?
Well, existing tools were not really made with collaboration in mind. Think of Hardhat, Foundry, or even Truffle before. Those are all tools that run locally on a developer computer. And what you can actually share is pretty much once you've done the deployment. There's nothing in between. I mean, you can still collaborate using GitHub on the code, but there are a lot of missing pieces throughout the development life cycle that those two do not resolve right now. And of course, you can continue to still use Howdot if you like, if you're a solo developer. And Loki still can help you when it comes to the deployment, interaction, and testing of your contract, because those tools that I just mentioned, those framework, are mainly CLI based and not very visual. They do not fit your interface. So that's one of the main value proposition that we add on top of them.
Yeah, I guess I do wanna dive into that. So, like, the process for a developer, is Loki.code supposed to remove the usage of Hard Hat Foundry? I guess I was just inherently assuming it's like you build in Hard Hat, for example, upload your code to Loki, and then Loki handles deployment. Is that
I think it's
process?
about you. I mean, a seasoned developer would be like, yeah, no, we're just going to do through a CLI. We're not going to touch any other tool, and that's totally fine. But there are other people that might prefer to have a more visual, hands-on approach, and they can combine their frameworks of choice, either is Hardhat or Foundry, and then they can move onto Loki maybe just for the deployment because they want to actually see what's happening, or maybe they just like the playground and they want to test different functions. So we can actually plug in at any stage depending
Mhm.
on the flexibility of our users. So they can be entirely Loki, or they can just take bits and pieces of it that they like and use them throughout their workflow.
And Emily, as you've seen, we have been investing a lot in interfaces, in creating interfaces. So one way we think smart contract Web3 development is we want to look forward and to provide something that is very easy to access, especially for new generations of developers, junior programmers, junior developers, younger people that want to access this space. And if they want to test something out, on their own with their friends, if they need to prepare for a little hackathon or something like that, they can have a very, easy to go entry point to smart contract development. I guess that there are many, new people joining the Linux community. If they want to jump in and they don't quite know all the technicalities and workings of tools like Harder and Foundry, they just, go straight with Loki code and then take the time they need if they want to have something that is more technical, more, as Harder or Foundry.
Yeah. No, I love the playground. I am scared of JavaScript. Like, I hate it. So, like, having someone tell me, like, "Oh, yeah, this is how you do it." I'm like, "Oh, perfect." I haven't even heard of Vue, so this is great.
Oh,
Uh,
Solidity is even worse.
I don't know, like, my background is I was, like, DevOps, right? So, it was, like, Kubernetes, YAML, etcetera, and then I move into Web3, which is, like, okay, now I started using, like well, I started with Truffle, a little bit of Hard Hat Foundry. Okay, now I'm doing, like, Solidity, and entire career, I actually just never touched JavaScript, and I'm like, "Oh my god, it's such an important part of, like, the development process," and I'm just like, "Ugh."
But
It's
here's
like
the
One
thing:
thing is
you might
about
have a. Oh, sorry, Fabio, go for
oh,
it.
you're right. You go, you go.
No, I was just saying that here's the thing: you might have a friend that is a very,
yeah,
good JavaScript programmer, and in
right.
this way, you don't really have to. The thing is that these things are complex to be built, so it's likely that the teams will have the main shares when it comes to smart contract development in the future, and our hypothesis is that if there are different people very specialized in very specific parts of the development process, and they gather and they work together, then the final output would be much higher, much better than if one tries to do everything on their own. That's the
Yeah.
idea.
Oh, I had
One
a question about Loki, or Fabio, you can go ahead if you wanna.
Yeah, sorry, you just remind me something when you say DevOps and YAML file. We are also working on a GitHub action that you be able to include into your CI pipeline, which allows you to use Hardhat as an engine in the background and deploy your contracts. So if you want, you don't trust Loki and you're like, yeah, I don't want to give him access to my GitHub, you can use our open source GitHub action to actually do the deployment through the
Wow,
GitHub action.
that's so cool.
So yeah, that's one thing. It should be that one should be done pretty soon. We've been working on it for a little bit.
Yeah. Does that include, like, running tests and everything? 'Cause that was kind of my other question about running tests in Loki.
If you have tests, yes. But one thing that we notice talking to developers is like what extra benefit we can bring of running tests on Loki rather than on your local machines. And the answer right now is probably not much, but maybe in the future we can think of any other way of maybe automating your testing, or even creating tests directly in Loki. Maybe we can offer some cookie cutter templates that you can use for your contracts. There's really a lot that we can do there, but unfortunately, I wish we had more developers.
No, that's fair. Because I feel like Loki's coming in at a good time. So I used to be on the Truffle team, and like I know like Truffle teams was kind of what they were aiming for, which is I think somewhat similar to Loki at the time, but I think it was like before its time, right? Because when Truffle was started, it was so early. Like no one was building in teams, right? Like don't create
Yeah.
teams for teams. But now we are like in a better place, and I think Loki is much better positioned. Um,
I think Truffle was cool, but was too early in what they were doing, especially with the dashboard. If they wouldn't stick with it, they would probably be miles ahead of us now.
yeah, no, but it's really exciting. Okay, cool. So I guess questions. When is it launching? Loki Code is already on LOKICODE.io. I guess all the cool sneak peek stuff and the GitHub Actions is TBD. I don't know. Don't commit to public deadlines.
No, I won't.
Yeah.
We're actually live in beta, but if you want to get access, is only by invitation. So if you want to get invited and you're a developer, jump into our Discord and let us know. I'll be happy to send you a link personally.
Okay. So the Discord, I guess they can find on your website.
They can find it on the website.
Right. And
Yeah,
then
or
on
they can, Twitter, LinkedIn.
Twitter.
yeah. Okay. So let me make sure all this. Get Loki Code. Is that the Twitter? Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Get Loki Code. Follow them on Twitter. You guys are so popular. You already have, what do you call it? I was like trying to look up Loki Code on Twitter, and there are like multiple versions of you and like the same logo. I was like, wow, that's when you know you're successful, when like scammers want to leverage your identity. Cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't have any other questions. I guess I'll just kind of give 5 seconds for lag to catch up, and then I'll let you guys go.
I think there are a couple in the
Oh,
chat.
Yeah, I was trying to.
What chain can we deploy Contra from? Vix Natalie. So we currently support Ethereum, Polygon, Binance Smart Chain, Arbitrum, Optimism, Avalanche, Base, and Linear, both mainnet and testnet. There's also a question in Russian. Unfortunately, I don't speak Russian. Sorry.
oh, I guess so Build Bear is a separate project from Loki.
Yeah, we are partnering with them to bring that functionality to our platform. But if you don't like to use it through our platform, you can just use it directly into theirs, and that's fine as well.
Okay.
And Build Bear is more a sandbox. So think about, you want to create a smart contract on the Lena blockchain, but you want to simulate the workings of the smart contract as if we were already on Lena. So basically, you can use their sandbox blockchain to simulate the environment, test the code, the smart contract, whatever, and then you move to the Linea mainnet. So
Okay.
we thought that it was a good idea to integrate that, because security is a big thing in this space, and you want to get things right at the very first time. So
yeah, no. Forking is, what do you call it? It was a game changer, I think, when it was announced, for sure. That was like back in 2017 is when the first iteration of forking came out. I don't know my blockchain history. I don't know why I'm trying to pin these things down. But yeah. Okay. I don't know if you see any other, I think, relevant questions, let me
There
know.
was someone from DeFi Army. Give me an example for deploy token NFT and get verified instantly. On the example thing, we have 2 templates that you can fork. and you can find it through the directly on the website. One is for an NFT and one is for a simple ERC20 token. We give you a complete interface, a UI that you can just use, like pretty much filling out a form, where you can, in the example of ERC20, you can put the name, the supply, if it's burnable, if it's mintable, and so on, and just click. It's one-click deploy a token and an NFT. And we also have a bunch of other contracts from cookbook.dev.
Oh,
It's
awesome.
also
Yeah.
another partner. We've been talking to them and see if we can use their template inside of Loki.code, and these are also available.
Cool.
Many things going on, as you can imagine.
Yeah, yeah.
it's
Oh
so
my
much
god.
stuff,
I love
to
seeing all
be
these
honest.
tools work together because I actually had the cookbook guys on, I think 2 weeks ago, and that was also super cool, and how they're bringing in Remix as well and finding all the synergies between everything. I guess we have someone saying, "Can you answer my questions,
I
Prince?"
can't see your question, Prince
But I'm
Leonard.
not sure if they're up above.
I've been trying to look. I can't see his questions.
Well, I guess.
Well, you can join our Discord and ask directly there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
We also have
absolutely.
an email, info at Loki.code.io. If you prefer shooting us an email, just send an email and we will be very happy to answer you. Oh, maybe
Oh,
he's
here we go. It's here.
How does Loki.code and/or potential security vulnerabilities or smart or bugs in smart contract and compilation deployment? We currently don't. So it's up to you to make sure that your contract and your code is actually sound. You can test it, you can play around with it, but at the end of the day, we don't want to take the responsibility of telling you that your code is great and then it gets exploited, because that's not what our tool is actually made for. It's to help you as a developer to bring to collaborate with your team and to bring your product to life faster.
Something that we can do, though, is since we have a partnership live with Zokyo, we can refer you to them, and you will get a discount on the price if you need some security check / audit from a firm specialized on these things.
Cool. And then what about the piece about like compilation bugs?
During compilation deployment, yeah, it's pretty much the same thing, in the sense that if your code it's wrong, it's not going to compile.
Yeah.
We'll give you an output, of course, on why it won't compile, and for deployment, it's the same thing. But if you have bugs that are not picked up, it can be deployed, but then it could be exploited. Well, that's a different story.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Wait, so compilation errors will show up like in some sort of, well, not compilation bugs, right? Compilation errors.
Yeah, like let's say that you're using the different Pragma version of you have some syntax errors that those will be picked up by the compiler, which is pretty standard Solidity compiler that everybody else uses in the industry. We haven't built one from scratch.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, those will be picked up during compilation. What measure does Loki.code take to prevent unauthorized access or tampering with smart contract code input from GitHub? We do not have access to your code in the sense that we only have read permission, and not write permissions. So you can import your code into GitHub. You can just play around with it in Loki. But since we do not have write permission, we cannot tamper the code in any way. I'm Fabio.
There's a question on the YouTube chat called "Who are you?" And it's like,
I hope that does respond to Prince Leonor questions about tampering with smart contract code. We cannot, even if we wanted to, we cannot tamper with it.
Awesome. Okay. I'm going to count down for 10. We're going to keep doing this. and wait for everything like lag to pick up and the questions to. So we'll count down from 10. And if no one has anything else to ask, I guess we'll end the stream. And if there's additional questions coming in, again, go to Loki.code, LOKICODE.io, where you can also find the Discord, ask questions, get into the closed beta, find out a bunch more. So, yes, we're going to awkwardly sit here, and look at each other while I count down. So, anybody who has questions, please interrupt now. These are the worst
I
things
think,
to
I
end.
think we had some really good questions, to be honest.
Oh, another one.
Here's
Signing up
another
for
one.
Loki, are you available? No, as we were saying before, we're currently in closed beta. If you want to have access, we can give you a sign up link. Just join our Discord and ask for it.
If not, just follow us, and quite soon we will open the beta. And
Yeah,
Oh,
we
is
will
it
open
coming
quite soon.
soon?
So if you don't want to do that, fine.
Well, that's cool. Okay, that's exciting. Yes.
I think the recounting can start.
Okay, cool.
No, up to
10.
you.
Oh, someone's asking us to do math. 2 plus 2
Oh
times
my
2.
God, math.
6. I get PEMDAS right? Okay. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. No! Oh. Stop!
This is a good one.
Loki.code, we're a superhero. What would its superpower be in the realm of smart contract development? Ooh, I don't know. What do you reckon, Federico?
Yeah, this is a good question. I think visualizing complex things in a very easy way.
Yeah, I like it.
Cool.
That's also my final answer.
You're working collaboratively together. Just yeah. Okay. Wow. I think there's just internet trolls. Okay. I'm going to count faster and then we'll close it off. Okay. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, cool. Well, thank you guys so much for joining again. Call
Thank
to
you.
actions, follow us on Twitter. And wait out for the open beta, or it's closed, but it's open soon. So keep an eye out. Yeah.
It's closed but open if you ask. So.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
Thank
cool.
you, Emily. It was great to chat with you.
Bye.